Hello, and welcome to episode 175 of our SAP on Azure video podcast. Today is January 18th, and together with Holger, Robert, and Goran, we are here to talk about anything related to SAP and Microsoft. Hello, everyone.
Well, that was an intro. I promise this was and is the first and most likely only time that we used an AI avatar to do the introduction. But I have to admit that I was super impressed how easy and fast it was to do this. With that, also welcome from my side. So today, Goran will give us an update on moving to flexible virtual machine scale sets. But before we go there, let's have a quick look at the news from this week. So I actually quickly want to start with a blog post on LinkedIn that started or that inspired this AI-driven avatar presentation. There was a blog post from Sonika, and she basically outlines how to use avatars in PowerPoint. I actually skipped the PowerPoint piece and only used here the Microsoft Speech Studio. And with the Microsoft Speech Studio, there's the possibility to create a talking avatar. And it's literally, I don't know, it's 2 minutes to type in what you want. You select the person. Of course, you can see it's limited for the moment. You can then select the language, and then you're good to go. You just create a video, you click on export the video, and that was it. So it's I was super impressed how easy that is. And I thought, well, let's see what comes next there. On another topic, Copilot. I think on the Microsoft side, most of us are already using Copilot now. Copilot in Teams, Copilot in Excel or PowerPoint or Word or something like that, or in Outlook. But up until recently, there was always this limitation that it was only available for corporations. And I think you also had to buy 300 licenses to really get started with Copilot. And we now just announced that this Copilot Pro would also be available for, I think, consumer edition, if I read it correctly.
It's, I think, 22 euro per month. So it's very nice. I mean.
Cool. Yeah. So now if you are already a Microsoft 365 customer, then with this Copilot Pro, yeah, here you go. 20. Yeah, maybe there's a different euro price, but here it says $20 per month per user.
Same direction. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can get Copilot for Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and so on. So it's I think it's pretty nice, and it really shows that we're going here for a huge scale. And here is exactly this. So we are removing the 300 seats, minimum purchase requirements, and so I think this will also really push this whole Copilot adoption forward. So really nice to see. Good, and then there's one old or updated blog post from Goran, and I think instead of me talking about this blog post, maybe Goran, let me stop sharing and. Then you can take over and tell us a little more about.
Yeah, let me start sharing. Long story, make it short. Basically, we had a great session with Denis Padya and I believe Ralitza at that time about virtual machine scale set with flexible mode for SAP. And then we went basically in deep dive why we need it. And it would be just good to remind ourselves, I mean, what's the benefit, you know? The other part of the story will be how to move an existing VMs and SAP system into the VMS SKA set and get all the benefits. And this is what I was working on a PowerShell script, which I will go through and do a demo. Just basically quickly about virtual machine scale set, you know. So let me just go to my blog where I was just, it's good. I have some pictures. I love the architectural picture in order to compare. Let me say kind of, or maybe here, a zonal deployment, high availability deployment.
You're not sharing.
I'm not sharing?
No, you're not yet sharing. Yep.
Sorry. Let me try again. Share. Okay.
Yeah, now it's coming up.
Now?
Yep.
All right. So there are two pictures. There is this one with, so far what we are having as a reference architecture, high availability across the zones versus high availability across the zones with the VMSS Flex. So initially here we see, for example, for the central services cluster 2 VMs, and for the database cluster 2 VMs, they are the zonal VM. For the availability set, we have 2 availability set for application servers, each availability set in each zone. And then as we need to bring their regional VMs, which may be a bit confused customer, and in order to bring those availability set and application servers VM in the same zone, we need to use proximity placement group, which I call it a needed evil. Meaning when you look the picture, some VMs are zonal, some are regional. Then we have 2 availability set, and we have a 2 proximity placement group, meaning the whole setup is a little bit, you could say, complex. Now, if you just check on a VMSS Flex, actually you just have one VMSS Flex across the zones, and all VMs are just part of the VMSS Flex. Zonal VM, yes, but that's it. So meaning there is no this complexity, so all VMs are zonal 1. You don't have availability set 1 and 2. You do not have a PPG. You just put them in a VMSS Flex in a correct zone, and that's it. So meaning it's much more simplified. And another great value, in my opinion, is also because you don't have a PPG, which is used to bring the VM in the same zone, so to say, on a close proximity. PPG are something also creating a challenges or issue with the collocation. Maybe there is no enough resources in that data center, and VMSS Flex actually relax a lot of this information, because VMs could be in the same zone but in another data center where there is more resources. And some customers, are really big one, are moving to the VMSS Flex, staying in the same zone just to get all the benefit of that relax allocation situation on allocation of the resources, right?
And Goran, just to do one step back, why are we doing this? We are doing this to have the lowest possible latency between the database and the application servers.
Correct. So meaning application server has to be in a close proximity to database. 0.7 millisecond. SAP folks always know that famous note. In order, SAP applications are very sensitive on the networking latency. If we are in the same zone, they would definitely have that good latency. However, in this case, if app servers are zonal VM, it's also a way to go. However, if they are deployed in one availability set, they're also stretched across the different fault domains. However, availability set is a regional construct. These VMs are regional one, they could land anywhere. And we need to make sure to bring them close to the database in the same zone, and glue here or pooling mechanism actually is the proximity placement group. So you create it either on database or in essential services. And when the availability set is linked to this proximity placement group, it will force that VM actually to be not just in the same zone, but actually even in the same data center, which can create some challenges with the capacity, right? And this is not the case, or it's much more relaxed with the VMSS Flex. They are still in the same zone, good latency inside of the zones, definitely, and much more resources availability across the different data center of the same zone, which guarantees the good latency as well, right? So this is some motivation definitely for the customer to use the VMSS Flex. Now, the big question is, okay, how can, if you deploy a new SAP system, and especially if you're in the zones, it's highly recommended really to use VMSS Flex. You can use also in a regional setup, but it's highly recommended, definitely. However, there are customers who already deployed something like this with the VMSS Flex, and they would love to use the benefit of the VMSS Flex, they need to move to the VMSS Flex somehow. Now, if we check also the official Microsoft documentation about SAP independent of how to migrate an existing availability set, they said there is no currently automated tool to directly move existing instance of the availability set to virtual machine scale set. And then they offer a different ways how to do it, and they are describing how to do it in a kind of manual way, right? And the whole point, actually, this PowerShell script or commandlet, so to say, it's automating the whole process.
Very nice. Okay,
for the customers.
You basically wrote a PowerShell script that performs all these manual tasks, but really helps you to speed up and obviously also in a more repeatable way, secure way, safe way to do this migration.
In a safe way, and this is also very important because so to say, it's I will show you the commandlet is doing a lot of pre-checks. The thing is, we need to delete the VM and recreate the VM in order to put to the VMSS flex, which is, I mean, the VM definition, not the disks. But this itself is actually a little bit violent act. And if some stuff are missing, there some limitations are not fulfilled, that new VM creation while adding to the VMSS flex would fail, which is not a nice scenario. And in order to prevent this, basically the script prior to deleting the virtual machine definition is doing a lot of check in order to make sure that all the prerequisites are met. Right, meaning it increased the robustness of the whole stuff, right? And another important point is SAP virtual machine scale set for SAP is actually using a limited set of functionality, and there is a specific claim what does it supports. So this commandlet is actually reflecting that limitation for the SAP itself. As an example, there is something called platform domain count, which can be 1, 2, or 3 or more, right? Independently from the SAP, you can have more, However, for the SAP, it's insisted to be 1, So meaning, if somebody would ask, can we use that commandlet to move any VM? Yes, you can. However, that VM is still having implemented limitations, which is SAP specific. But if those limitations are met, they could potentially use it, right? Important is also to say, basically, that there is a, generally speaking, virtual machine scale set are very much advised inside of the zones. In the region with the zones, the VMs must be zonal 1, period. And this is one scenario where we have region with the zones, and VMs are deployed as a regional in availability set. In this case, they are also moved to the availability set, and they are also stretched across the zones as well, as an example, during the migration. This is example where we have across the zones VMs, and they are still staying wherever they are, but just moved to the VMSS flex. For the motivation is, again, for example, no PPG and more simple architecture, as an example, right? And here is an example of a zonal region. Again, VMs are, for example, inside as a regional VM in availability set, and maybe with the PPG also bound close to ACS and database. And they are moved in the zonal VM. They have to be zonal 1, so they are still in one zone, okay? But just put in the VMSS flex. So meaning the requirement in the Azure region, which is a zonal 1, the VM has to be converted to the zonal VM, okay? And in the region without the zones, of course, this is an example of the deployment in the region without, we don't have much of them, but some regions are. Then we can just convert them to the so to say to the VMSS Flex. Then they will stay regional. Okay. So these are some potential scenarios. So
Goran, maybe before you go to the demo, just for me now, let's pretend I'm a customer and I have this already installed. I have been using proximity placement groups and everything is working fine. So this is not mandatory, first of all, right? So
it's not mandatory. The old one is still supported. It's not mandatory.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. But from a flexibility point of view, from going forward, it would be advisable if I have time, if I would switch from proximity placement groups to VMSS Flex, because as the name implies, it provides me with more flexibility, and I get rid of these restrictions or boundaries that come, for example, with proximity placement groups.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, this is a valid point, but I will go from other perspective. In most customers who are using PPGs, if they like it or don't like it, it's not the question. But every time when they do some planned maintenance and they want to restart that landscape, they need to be very careful how they are starting the virtual machines which are part of PPG. Yeah. Otherwise, it may happen that they will have conflicts and they will have resources not available, and this is nightmare. Yeah. So and the customers don't like that. Yeah, and then partners also. And I think probably most of them will actually move to VMSS Flex. Yeah, because it's much more easier. Yeah, you simply ignore all those complexity.
Correct.
And just put it there, and that's all. Yeah.
Correct. And from us, Microsoft, it's absolutely highly super recommended in the regions with the zones to go across the zones, right? Customers can do in the regions without zones, but generally I would say if you go for the high availability, probably then availability set would be a better approach generally. Although it is a supported also, but still in the zones, it's definitely it is the highest value, I would say, right? And generally we always say go across the zones because this is the highest resiliency anyway. So definitely that would be the really very much recommended way to do it.
Perfect. Right?
Okay. So I'll just switch here to the Visual Studio Code. And basically, we are talking about one commandlet. One commandlet. It's called move-az SAP VM to VMSS Flex. So the name it's telling it's kind of what it's doing. And basically, again, as I mentioned, it's designed for this SAP use cases. If we change the commandlet, would change as well. So meaning if the region has zones, target VM must be a zonal one, although the source VM could be a regional as well. If the region has no zones, target VM, of course, stay the regional one. And we have a limitation that flexible orchestration mode of the virtual machine scale set has to be used. And the full domain count must be 1, although we can have 2, 3, and so on. So these are kind of a limitation, to install all the stuff, it's easy. I wouldn't go here, but basically I give kind of my best to make it kind of PowerShell compliant. So when you install it, you have something like help.
Oh, nice.
Which is giving you also the command, how different variation of the commands, and it's also giving you kind of examples.
Cool.
Examples how to do it. So here is, for example, one example to move VMSS Flex inside of the Azure zones. And at the moment we don't have a way to create a virtual machine scale set through the portal, either CLI or PowerShell. So here's, of course, because this is a PowerShell command line tool, it's kind of describe how to create VMSS Flex and specify full domain count to 1, and also say now these are the zones 1, 2, and 3. What do you want to use? And then this is example how to call the commandlet. You need to specify the virtual machine resource group and name, and VMSSS resource group and name itself. And in the zones, you put the zone number where you want to move it. Now, in the example without the zones, of course, the difference is, yes, VMSS Flex is differently created, no zones, and the move AZ to VMSS Flex, there is no parameter Azure zone. Yeah, because so this is the way how you control. In the zones you have to use it, So let me just quickly switch to the portal, and I will go here to the Swiss West zone, which is a region without the zones, for example, right? And I have here, let me just go to one example so I want to move this VM basically FL5-VM in the Swiss West to the VMSS Flex, for example, this one SAP VMSS. Let me just use it. Let's check how it's kind of configured. No zone, this one. This is the VMSS Flex in the portal. And then here, for example, we can see that this VMSS Flex is created with a full domain count is equal to 1. And I mean, no domains are configured, So I'm just for the sake of the fun, I will just put here Azure zone, although this kind of, let me just clear it. This makes no sense, of course, but customer can actually easily make mistakes. Just a second, my F8 is not kind of working, so let me just copy it and run it. Okay. So meaning it's doing now a lot of pre-checks, so okay, VM is existing as an example. It's checking the virtual machine scale set. It's configured for the full domain equal to 1. This is supported with the SAP stuff. It's, by the way, also doing some additional stuff compared to the previous commandlets, which are doing moving to the zones or to the VMSS. It's kind of, if the VM is adding to the load balancer, and this one is, it's automatically figuring out, okay, that there is a load balancer, and it's also checking that this load balancer must be a standard type, which is needed for the SAP.
Cool. Yeah.
So meaning in the previous commandlets for the zones, they are doing an old way. I ask for the information about the load balancer name and resource group, but here I kind of automated, meaning it's through the NIC card. It will find out it is using a backend pool, and backend pool is configuring that load balancer, and that load balancer is a standard type, right? So then it will check. Otherwise, if it's not, it will break and say, hey, you need to use a standard type. Fix it, right? And here, for example, there is a broke. It says Azure region has no zones. You cannot migrate VM to a region that it has no zones. Please remove the parameter Azure zones, right? So this I will, for example, let me clear it, and let me repeat the previous command, just zone, just for the fun. And actually, it will basically, I will not run till the end, but it will just check this, that's kind of this is okay, right? Because again, if I wouldn't check this, I mean, during the recreation of the VM, there would be a failure, So it's now there we don't have so to say. Okay, checking the disks and say, the VM will be stopped. Do you want to continue? So meaning it's all okay, it didn't break, So I will just stop it here as there is no need. Again, I will now just quickly move to, I would say more interesting scenario. Let's say in this case, East US region where we have zones. And meaning the VM has to be created, must be a zonal one. So just again, let me go to the picture. It's always easy. If we have something like this, the VMs are regional one. Okay, maybe even high availability. It has to be moved to the VMSS and converted to the zonal VM. All right. And this would also happen in a kind of automated way through the snapshotting and creating a zonal VM. but with all of the checks. So let me just go here, for example, another zonal VM. So let me take, we have one regional VM, all right, and it has also will move. I'm telling them to move it to the region. Now I have it before example, yeah. Move to the regional VM. This is the regional VM to some, for example, let me show you here. So the VM is regional and move to VMSS Flex, this one. So let me just quickly check it, how this VM looks like, or the VMSS Flex looks like. Okay, it would actually say, it is a full domain. It's one. So this is, for example, the correct one. However, I believe here, yeah, there are no zones configured as an example in this VMSS Flex. So let me just copy this example and run it. So the command has to figure it out, say, hey, this is a kind of wrong, so you don't have it, and you can't do it,
And that's actually pretty cool. So you're doing all the checks, and obviously if I would have to do this manually, then I might forget one of these checks.
Correct.
And then I'll run into an error later on. And since you have all scripted this in
correct
in this one command, all these checks are done for me.
Correct. So for example, it figures this is the East US, and then it finds automatically Azure region East has zones. Okay. And then it goes to the, this is, I don't know, it's a zonal VM, check the different stuff, but then it breaks and says, hey, the VMSS East US has a zone in regional VMSS Flex for SAP supported in Azure region. We do have zones. VMSS Flex has to be configured to use the zone, which is not, right? So therefore it just breaks. So I will not torture you much. I will just take the last example, which one example which kind of works. So I have let's say a zonal VM, and zonal VM I would use VMSS Flex, which in this example is configured with the 2 zones. Generally, it's a recommended. I mean, makes sense to have all 3 of them, but okay, this one, it's the VMSS Flex is corrected with the 2 zones, so meaning I can only move to either zone 1 or 2, and it's a full domain. It's equal to 1, and the virtual machine itself, which I'm moving, it's zonal VM2. It's currently zonal VM2. This one is actually currently located in zone 1. And let's say I want to move actually from zone 1 to zone 2. That's also one of the scenarios. So move VM from zone 1 to zone 2 for different reason. I have capacity in a different zone, as an example, So I will just run this correct. The last example till the end, and then we can comment the different stuff. So it checks this virtual machine scale set. It's using a flexible mode supported for the SAP. It's checking the Azure region. East US has the zones. This VM, it's configured inside of the. It has using the load balancer. Automatically it finds out through the NIC card which load balancer that is, and that load balancer is a standard type, is doing different checks about the disks, and then you say, look, desired Azure Zone 2, I'm moving from 1 to 2, is configured for the virtual machine scale set. Remember, it's only 1 and 2. If I would say here Zone 3, it will break and say, hey, this is not kind of configured, right? And says, okay, the VM will be stopped. Do you want to continue? Okay, it's just now moving to the next part. Now, the interesting, I will just quickly go here to the disk, and this is really a kind of new stuff. Generally speaking, in the first version, the only working were supported in a sense implemented way was the virtual managed disk V1, right? Not the V2. Now the customers are also having the V2 disks, more and more. And recently I also added the feature to handle the V2 disks.
V2.
The general approach here is, and I will also we can reflect the how it's kind of working. It's a little bit specific. The way how to do it is basically when you move either V1 or V2 from one zone to another zone, it will create a snapshot, and out of snapshot, it will actually create a new zonal disks, right?
Okay.
And then the VM definition will be deleted, and then the new disk will be actually used, so to say. Okay, here is still doing some preparation steps, The thing is here that with the V2 disk, and this is generally quite fast with the premium V1 disks, a little bit with the V2, it's a little bit different. With the V1 is doing a so-called full snapshot. However, with the V2, it's being used incremental snapshot, and that incremental snapshot is actually snapshot itself is a kind of fast happening. However, it's placed also on a kind of slower disks. And then there is a kind of backend process which needs to be finished of the backend process of copying the incremental snapshot in order that you can start to use the snapshot to create the new disks. And this is taking a bit more time, So, okay, now he says it will, I will just say the VMs will be deleted, and let's see what it happens, It's removing. The thing is, what the script is actually doing here, what customer can also, of course, they are fully free, they have to feel free to create the snapshot, the whole procedure manually. When you create the snapshot, okay, you go here and you would say, okay, give some snapshot name and create it, but the thing is, when you have premium V2, that kind of snapshot is not immediately ready to be used to create the new disks, and you need to wait basically that backend copy process is finished. It's not it will not, and this takes some time, and with the premium V1 is not the case. It's happening here. Data disk 0, it's kind of very, very fast. However, this will not happen with the V2. But the commandlet will do here is actually it will do it for you. So meaning it will create a V2 snapshot, and it will sit in a loop and wait. Basically until that until the backend copy process is finished. And when it's finished, it will continue and then create a new disk in a desired zone. Okay, now comes to the second disk, and you say, hey, incremental snapshot of the V2 or load for this cannot be used to create new disk until the backend process copying the data into snapshot has completed. This can take some time, and now basically sit in a wait and a loop until that snapshot backend process is finished. And when it's finished, it will continue and create the new disks, out of snapshot, and then it will recreate the VM, And so basically the whole stuff is happening automatically, It's, if we would just double check it, the new snapshot, which is kind of created, for example, for the disks 1. Okay, I believe this is the one, snap. You see completion percent is 0. It has to be 100%, So the script is sitting in a loop and waiting until all stuff is finished, Again, you could do it manually, but the whole process is fully automated. So this will take maybe minute or two. The trick here is in order to speed up the whole process is to do this initial snapshot in advance before the script, right? And that would, because these are the incremental snapshot, the next snapshot, which is executing through the script, will be much faster. And this is also kind of important part, especially when the database VM is moved and they have a lot of disk and bigger sizes, you know. So this would be I mean, maybe a trick to do it kind of manually, you know. So, okay, this is taking now a little bit some minute or two until it's finished. I mean, we don't have to wait it basically, but it's, again, it's handling for you the whole process, right? And maybe one more important part is about the question is what if the customer would have been using Azure NetApp files?
Okay. Yeah.
With the VMSS Flex. For the script, it's fully transparent because Azure NetApp file it's a networking drive. So all the configuration are stored inside of the OS and they're not changed. However, there are some tips and tricks what you have to do it and how you can do it with. And Dennis Padilla actually nicely wrote a blog and described the whole procedure, how you can, what you need to do with the existing Azure NetApp volume and how to make it to the zonal Azure NetApp volume, right? In order to move the Azure NetApp volume to the close proximity. For the compute, still they can of course use the existing script. Basically, nothing changed there, right? So this is let's say for the migration, the premium V1 and V2 will work. ANF as well with this block, and it's still missing. So to say, how it's called. The another disk, ultra disk type is still missing. I mean, I need to check it how to do it, you know. But basically, that's the whole stuff. I mean, it can be quite helpful, this procedure, because there is a lot of checks and a lot of stuff and a lot of manual stuff. What generally you would need to do it when you need to migrate it. And sometimes we do talk about the productive system, and of course the overall speed of the whole process. It's quite important, right? So generally speaking, script can help. And last but not least, let me say what is super important, because this is a not official Microsoft tool. There is always essential is we don't claim any kind of support here. They have to have well implement and test a backup restore procedure if something goes wrong. And generally, I always say just test, and test. You know, ideally is to put test VM, dummy VM into the same environment, resource group, VNet, with the same setup as the real VM. Testing on this, and if this works, then definitely there is a high possibilities also that this would also work on a productive VM. I mean, if something goes wrong, it's not a big deal to restore the original one. However, it's of course it's important to to make sure as much as possible that the whole procedure will work end to end, right? So okay.
Cool.
Now,
and I mean, having a backup in place is always good anyways. So
I mean, anyway, sometimes you would be surprised somebody is not having, but definitely it is must to have. Yeah, it's must to have. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so that would be all. I mean, it doesn't make sense that we wait till the end. I mean, probably will be in some minutes. So this will be finished.
One question: when you're moving from old setting to the new setting, did you somehow delete this empty availability set and PPGs, or just leave them there so customer need to delete them manually?
Availability set are left there.
Okay.
They are not. Okay. They are not. I mean, not. This their stuff. They are not. If they use PPGs, they're also
free resources. Is nothing extra cost there. But okay, maybe you should write somewhere in comment that customer should. On the end of the script, the customer should take care of
some additional cleanup. Yeah.
I mean, one thing which I'm doing explicitly here, it's I'm making sure that the disk name are the same.
Okay.
And because I'm not changing the resource group, I need to, so to say, delete the old disks
Okay.
in order to free the names for the new disks, right?
Of course, yeah.
So what I'm basically doing is when I'm creating the snapshot, let me just go here. When I'm creating the snapshot, the first thing is I'm creating the copy of the original disk.
Okay.
Yeah. So for example, here disk 0-origin, that's the original disk. If you remember, we were in the zone 1. So this is in the zone 1. Now, when I finish the copying from the snapshot of the original disk, which can be used for the restoring, then I delete the original disk to free the name, and then create a new disk, which is now will be in the zone 2. Okay. So meaning that was in the previous command line to move to the zone or availability set. Default is to create the new disk, and you have a flag. Do you want to keep the disk? But there's a lot of requirements or ask from a customer to keep the same disk naming convention for different reasons, not to break other automation tools. So this is also what
you actually were creating virtual machines. So what happened with SAP key, license key?
Which key?
Of SAP. I mean, if you change the virtual machine ID.
This is a good point. So generally, I think, did I use key? I have here in the blog this yes, SAP Live post configuration task.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay.
So this is the same stuff. SAP license key, it's bound in Azure to the unique virtual machine ID. When you delete the VM and create the new VM, the only stuff basically what would change is this unique VM ID. And because the existing key is bound to the old VM ID of the VM which was deleted, it becomes invalid. So I mean the customer needs basically to generate a new license after the VM is recreated, because the new VM will have new VM ID, and apply it, which is not much work, but they have to do it. So basically this will happen for the message server VM 1, or if they have cluster 2 VM, then anyway they have 2 VMs. They just have to reapply, right?
But for HANA is not needed, I think, yeah?
For HANA it's not needed. HANA is using a different, as far as I know, different mechanism, and they're not bounding to this VM ID. Yeah. Okay. But that's a good thing. The post config task, which still you need to do it. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's see if this is okay. It's finished, and it's now basically it says now backend process is 100%, and it's now actually you see copying the original disk as a backup. And now it's copy. Now it's removing the original data disk, and I will create the real disk in a new zone 2, and after this we'll actually go and recreate the VM. So that's it. That's really the whole stuff. We don't have to wait till the whole process is basically finished.
Okay, we believe you.
Yeah. It takes some time away a little bit, but still it's a much, it is a much
manually,
much faster than if you have to do it manually, especially with a lot of disk. There's still plan to optimize the whole procedure for the V2, because currently it's just doing 1 by 1 disk, so when you run into V2, it sits and waits until the stuff is finished, So the idea is maybe to do the snapshot for the old disks, loop it and check it if it's a premium V2, are the old disk backend copy process is finished, and when it's finished then you can create the new one, so basically the old backend copy could potentially happen in parallel. So that would speed up the whole migration time, so to say, the script execution time. Now it's doing 1 by 1 disk, and this is just sitting until the backend process of V2 is, so to say, finished. So there is a potential, let's say, for the improvement of the speed of the whole process, right? But otherwise, it's still, I mean, kind of works. It still works, yeah.
But in general, also when you mention parallel, because we are talking about one system, so potentially I can in general in parallel migrate different machines parallel with different sessions.
You can move. I'm talking about one VM with the multiple disks, which is especially sensible from a time perspective for the database VM, which would have a bigger disk and more disk, HANA disk. I mean, multiple disk, a big disk, and the bigger disk, the whole backend processes takes longer, right? But the other stuff, you're right. You can, when we talk about multiple VMs, yes, they can generally apps or whatever. They could parallel. Okay, let me just. It's finished. Let me just show it. Prove it. It's done.
Point.
You know, it's done. You know, the VM. It's
cool.
It's finished. You know, it's successfully done. So if I would just if I would refresh it, the VM should appear, and it must be now inside of the zone 2, so to say, and part of the VMSS Flex as well. Okay, its availability zone is 2. Okay, and it's also part of the scale set. Sorry, of this scale set Flex. You know, so I mean, again, also an interesting part, if the customer has an HA system. The HA system, it's excellent for reducing the downtime, because if something is cluster, central services, or database, okay, they would go on a standby database node, which is down. The another one is up and running, hosting either a database or central services. And when this is finished, they would do a failover and then do for the another node. And app servers are redundant, so basically you do one by one. So meaning, in principle, you could have it. The only downtime is a failover of the clustered instance, you know, and app servers, you can stop them in a, again, you can do in a role-based manner, and you can stop each app service in soft shutdown mode, meaning user have time to log off, the backend process have time, you give them time to finish. You potentially, the only downtime is maybe 30-40 seconds of failover of something, you know, which is basically nothing. It's just nothing, you know. So potentially you can do a surgery, open surgery, you know, on a conscious patient, so to say. Let me say so.
But do a backup first.
Yeah.
Backup before surgery.
Backup before surgery, so to restore the whole, not to get the Frankenstein on the end, you know.
if patient failed to restore.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's it.
Okay, great.
Well, nice, Goran. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm sure this will be used by lots of customers. So fantastic to see this. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. That's it for today, I guess. Yep. So we'll see each other next week.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye.